plow go down yesterday,
Ooh.
and
Hi, guys.
is all we can do.
Hello. Bill
Hi.
Ganger's here with me. If you can get him in the picture.
I'm waving.
He's waving at you.
Well, I can't see him. He's going to need to be closer.
I'm
He's hidden in your background.
trying to move my screen right now. You come over here and you can. Let's see. You have to shoot. There you go. No.
There he is.
All right.
Let me see if I want to put us on the. Oh, come on now. There you go. I'm still not getting you in there, am I? I need to do more. There you are. Okay. I can move up here and then they can see me and then they can't.
I just dropped the packet in the chat if anybody needs it.
So how's your leg?
I'm doing good. I'm lurching around better, a little bit better every day.
Find out tomorrow whether I need knee surgery.
What was that, Bill?
I'll find out tomorrow afternoon whether I need knee surgery.
Oh, I'm so glad that they said I don't. I'm very pleased.
I've been looking for a knife to cut it off and make it feel better.
Oh, well, it sounds like you might need it.
Yeah, been a month.
Looks like you're sitting in the sun, Leah.
A little bit. So I have a window that sits kind of right over my desk a little bit. So if the sky is just right, it does shine down on me, which when it's sunny and warm, sometimes gets a little hot. So I just started sharing my screen. Can you guys see it?
Yes, we can. No. Let me hit shares. Nope.
Nope, I'm trying to share mine. So I really don't know what I'm doing.
Yes,
Yeah, so you can see it or no? Okay,
I can't.
Pat's saying no. All right, let me try
Looks like
again.
everybody had no.
Let's see. Lisa's on here just in case she needs to rescue me because I really don't know what I'm doing. Okay, can you see it now?
There it is. Yep. We
Okay,
can see now.
great. Oh, look at Andy. He's on a little vacay.
It's better than looking at my actual office here.
Yeah. Yeah, hang on just a second. I gotta.
Looks like you're sitting on the wing as they're flying, Andy.
It's just a reminder of what I should be out doing right now.
Yeah, no kidding. And you should have been flying yesterday. It was a beautiful day.
Oh, I know it.
Okay, Gary, so it's just 4:30 now, and I believe it shows we are recording. I talked to Ajoy. He had a last minute conflict, so he cannot make it today. And Jerry is going to be joining us late. And other than that, we've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4.
We're missing that is David.
Yeah. But we do have 4 people on with you, Andy, Bob, and Bill. So we do have a quorum.
We do have quorum.
Yes.
Perfect, then we'll go ahead, we'll get started. We'll call to order the meeting in here. And it's 4:31 on April 7th, 2021. Leah, do you know, do we have any people on the phone?
We do. Let's see. We've got several people on, and I think that I'm trying to see how I can see. So we've got Jan Hare and Jennifer Rishlick, Julie Case, Megan McKibben. Oh, there is David Noyes. David Noyes is here. Darcy Shaw, Steve Finnegan,
Oh, okay,
and Ben Rowe are on the line.
okay. Perfect, then we'll see what's going on. Okay, this is the time for oral communication 1. This is time where the audience can address the board. They are limited at this time to 2 minutes per individual. And the maximum time that we have for this section of the oral board is 10 minutes. We do have a second oral board for communications later on where you do get to speak longer for 5 minutes and that, but that's towards the end in there. So at this time, is there anybody that would like to address the board?
Lisa, how do we tell if somebody is wanting to talk to us?
Usually,
If they want to talk to you, they will raise their hand. You'll
Okay.
be able to see it. I'll watch for it and
Okay.
do something with it if anybody does.
Okay, great. Thank you.
you should probably explain to them how to raise.
And I take there's nobody reaching their hand, right?
No,
I
not
don't-
at this point.
Okay.
And
All right.
how do we
Then,
know how
we'll
they,
call for,
so, hang on just a second. So do we know how people do raise their
Yes.
hand if they need to? Because I don't know how to do that.
Oh, let me look here.
Gonna have to go to the reactions
Yeah,
bar on the far right there. And there's a raise hand button and you just type raise hand.
Okay,
And to lower that hand or to remove the hand, you click it again.
okay. Thank you, David.
That's pretty simple, David.
Yep. Those of us county employees, we use Microsoft Teams all the time. So Zoom is a whole different ballgame for me. So thank you, Lisa. Okay. So
I hear you.
seeing nobody, I'll
We'll
let you go
continue
on with, yep, keep going, Gary.
Okay, approval of February 2021 board minutes at this time.
I'll move for approval.
I will second that.
Okay, we got a first, we got a second. Any discussion on the minutes? All right, they're approved. All right, we'll move on to reports. We'll go into approval of the January and February 2021 financial report for fiscal year 20 and 21.
Okay, great. So you all have the year-to-date financials in your packet. It's no surprise that there's not a heck of a lot of activity other than some staff costs and some other small things. So I'm certainly happy to answer any questions if you have them.
I'm good.
Okay.
Any questions from anybody at this time?
Nope.
None here.
All right, that's pretty sweet and simple.
Well, that's because Jerry's
Seeing
not here.
none, and there is no going back. Okay, then can I get a motion to approve the financials for fiscal report 2021?
I move that we accept the financial reports for 2021.
Second.
All right, perfect. We got a first, we got a second. So the financial reports are approved in there. All right, Pat, your time. 4-H update.
All right. Good to see everybody, at least in little tiny pictures here you are. Quick update here. Not a lot has changed since last time we met, except Washington County on February 23rd went from high to moderate. We all know that. And with 4-H, that allowed us to be able to have our groups meet in person. Until then, everything was remote. But meeting in person means that a club can get together with 10 kids with 2 adult leaders, and that's it. It has to be outside, and there's tracking and tracing forms we have. There's training we do for volunteers. We've been doing quite a few of those. There's a pre-authorization form, all of those things that Oregon Health Authority and OSU requires. At least our groups are able to get together. Some we haven't had any of them get together yet. They're kind of getting through the process, and but I know they all want to, for sure. If the county goes to from a moderate where they're at now to low, that means our kids can get together in groups of 12 with 2 adult leaders. And that's it. That's the only change we have. And people always ask us, what about, schools are doing this and that? 4-H is considered an enrichment program with the Oregon Health Authority and OSU. So it's a different level of restrictions that we're required to meet, and along with social distancing and masks, all those type of things. So even if it goes to low, we still have those restrictions. So we're kind of waiting to see what you guys come up with the fair, what can happen out there. And I think you're all waiting for that too. But we have a lot of people wanting to do fair, do projects. So ideally, we hope to have some kind of face-to-face programming out there this summer on the fairgrounds. There'll probably be in the best case scenario, probably a combination of remote and face-to-face to keep the groups in small groups and social distancing. And so that's kind of where we're at with our world of remote learning. I think we're all getting tired of it. I know schools are, we are. This is my 6th hour of Zoom just today, because it's just the way we do things nowadays. But imagine this happening 10 years ago, before we had Zoom. It'd be we'd really be in a tough situation. So, but we do have, like this weekend, there's a swine weigh-in, and we have I know the auction committee and some volunteers, they really had it organized for the beef weigh-in last month, I guess it was, or whatever month that was. So that's going forward too. So we just don't know where groups are meeting on. We have a lot of groups that sign up for Zoom to do their Zoom meetings. And that's good. They're still getting together, still doing their projects, just in a different way. But so we're looking forward to seeing where the fair, what's going to happen this summer. So, and then Leah and I and Darcy and I, we meet every month. And last time it was May 5th at the board meeting. We have more of a resolution. I hope we can, but and now with Clackamas, Multnomah most likely going back to high. Washington County, I think just 3 infections away from that is kind of scary too. So basically we don't know. So we're just kind of going with the flow, doing the best we can. We do meet monthly with all our volunteers, our first Wednesday meetings. We have one tonight. And updates kind of like this here. And then we meet the following week with the superintendents, just so everybody's communicating and understanding and seeing where we're going. So we're ready to kick into gear when we have to kick into gear. So I think that's for any questions?
No questions of Pat?
Okay.
Wow, that's amazing.
Okay, it's nice and short and sweet though, but we do have a schedule and horse fairs. We have a schedule for that, and we're still looking at what July would be. So there's a lot of things up in the air. Oh, and our 4-H Washington County 4-H Association. Every county has a nonprofit arm, and they have a fundraiser going on to help raise money for judges and awards and those type of things. Because right now we don't have any money at all. So we're doing that too.
So thank you, Pat. And I just want to let the board know that after our discussion tonight, whatever fair model you all decide to go with, then Pat and I and Darcy and the volunteers and the superintendents, we will all start meeting and figuring out how we move forward with whatever fair model that you so choose tonight.
Yeah. No pressure.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay. And Lee, I have one question, then I'll probably entail to Pat talking about trying to raise funds for the judges and that too. Can they use TLT money for that for that option if they do go forward with that?
So we can talk about that when we get to those budget options. The short answer is kind of. It just depends on how much money we have available.
Okay.
Which right now isn't a heck of a lot.
For that.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we're going to move on to the education fund, and I see Mr. Bob Rollinger right there.
Yes, you want to give the report since you were at the meeting there for him on what we talked about?
Vice President.
I'm not the president anymore.
No,
Who's
but you're
the
the vice
president?
president.
No, I'm not. I'm not an officer. Or am I? Anyway, we had a.
Yes, you are. We voted you as a vice president.
Or like,
I must have gone to the restroom. Anyhow, we did have a meeting and we discussed our financials and are prepared to look and see what's going to be needed for the 4-H and make some sort of contribution to help out with the judges and so forth when we see what we're doing and what's needed. So we don't have a lot of money, but we can certainly kick in to help out.
Great.
And that was the meeting. Gary, anything to add?
Yeah, I would add that the only other thing is if the education committee does give money, we've got to do it equally to FFA as well as 4-H. So it's got to be equal sharing. And we talked about trying to get out to other people like the Farm Bureau, since we have a state Farm Bureau representative sitting right over to my right. That'll be something to see if we could get the local chapter of the Farm Bureau to help support the kids, FFA and 4-H.
Great. Yes.
So I just want to point out that when you're talking about FFA, they are a very different animal than 4-H, literally and figuratively. Washington County 4-H is one big organization. They have a 501c3 arm that they can take contributions from. FFA is not that simple. There are individual schools. Some of them have functional alumni 501c3 groups, some of them do not. So we need to be, once we get to where we want to start allocating those funds, we'll have to figure out an appropriate accounting mechanism to do that.
Okay, excellent. Excellent then. FAC update. I know we got a meeting at the end of the month, the 21st at 4 o'clock.
Yep, so no FAC report at this time. We do have a meeting on the 21st. As a reminder, Bill Ganger and Gary Seidel serve on that committee. So they will both be there representing the interests of the fair.
Right on. Okay, then we'll move on to old business, County Fair 2021. And we'll talk about the health authority requirements.
Well, so I'm going to do it a little bit off from the agenda a little bit. First, I want to give a staff update, just as a little bit of a status update. I've been giving you this staff update at every meeting for the last year, and things are a little bit better than they were last time. Last time it was me and Albert as full-time with Lisa a couple days a week, and we were pretty slim on staff. So just recently, Lisa is back with us full-time. I cannot tell you how happy we are to have her back. And I believe she's pretty happy to be back with us full time as well. And then we've got Colton, Kent, and Jeff back full time. So they are, as you all know, Albert has been trying to single-handedly take care of the 100-acre fairgrounds by himself since March 12th of last year. And that's a big task. There's a lot of mowing, edging, watering, repairs, maintenance, homeless to chase off. I mean, it's a big job for one guy. And he has done the best that he can, but there's a lot of things that didn't happen last year. You know, the barns are still filled with leaves and things from the winter. So Colton, Jeff, and Kent are back, and they are working on all of those. Oh, there's Barry. On all of those projects and getting the grounds in shape. So for whatever functions that we are allowed to have outdoors this summer, whether it's the county fair or any outdoor events, we've got to get the grounds in shape. There was still a lot of leftover construction, you know, stuff from the event center that was our responsibility to get cleaned up that Albert couldn't do on his own. So he's got the guys back. So we're happy to have them back. We do still have 3 employees that remain redeployed. Carol, our finance person, is with us for 1 day a week, and she is redeployed to county finance for 4 days a week. Our county fair program specialist, Julie, who is normally here at these meetings with us, is full-time in housing. And our contract administrator, Will Culver, is also full-time in finance. We are hoping and anticipating that they will be able to be back with us at the beginning of next calendar year, depending on how things go with OHA requirements and our financial health. And then we have 4 positions that are remaining unfilled, those positions that we had planned to hire a year ago. And that is our fair and event supervisor, our sales and marketing associate, our event services coordinator, and vacant facilities maintenance worker. Remember, Albert Sr. retired in late 2018, so or 2019. So that position has remained vacant and we have not filled. However, we are going to be hiring 2 new positions. That's something that's you have not heard yet, and that's going to be 2 event janitorial general services aides. We have found that the contract that we have for janitorial for the event center, the fairgrounds, and the county fair, the price has gone way, way up, and it's actually cheaper for us to hire 2 full-time general services aides to serve as our janitorial and event services than actually contracted out like we have done in the past. So those will actually be coming online as a cost savings for us in July. Any questions on those before I move on? Okay, now Oregon Health Authority update on those guidelines. So Pat was right. Actually, Clackamas County and Multnomah County today got moved back up into the high risk. We are 3 people away from being moved back into high risk as well. Our Department of Health had a meeting with them today. We're right on the cusp. We could either stay in moderate or we could be bumped back up into high. We are really hoping that we don't, but we don't have a lot of control over that. So at this time, as of today, we are still in moderate risk. And if we have a fair and if the fair is still at moderate risk at that time, that means we could have 55 people in the Cloverleaf building, 100 people in the event center. I know that seems crazy. Maximum outdoor capacity on the fairgrounds would be 25%, which is 8,376 people, and a closing time of 11 p.m. And if we are in low risk level at that time of the fair, if we choose to have one, our indoor capacity comes up to 50%, which gives us a little over 100 people in the Cloverleaf, a little over 1,300 people in the event center, and outdoor 16,750 people, closing time at midnight. I'm not advocating that if we choose to move forward with a fair that we use those numbers. I'm just simply telling you what they are. So while we're talking about those numbers, I just want to touch on capacity. The higher the capacity numbers, the higher the costs. So if we decide that we move forward to the fair and we are in low and we decide we want to have 16,750,000 people on the grounds, which I do not believe we want to do, that just costs us more. The more people, the more COVID enforcement, the more COVID security, the more portable restrooms that we have to have, the more sanitation attendants, the more COVID signage, and more health risks that are associated. So I just want to preface that even though those numbers would be allowed by OHA in those risk sectors, that there is a high financial cost that comes with those capacity numbers. These are all things you've seen before. Just as a reminder, in these risk levels, all these things have to be complied with, such as physical distancing for people outside of your household, prohibit groups congregating, restrict seating, and comply with party size limits, which is no more than 6 people within a party at a table if they're seated. Everybody has to wear masks, one-way traffic patterns, attend online in advance, reserve online in advance, all those things that you've seen before that you've heard me talk about. So those would all still be in effect if we choose to have a fair this summer. All right, so I'm going to move right into our fair options. As a reminder, for the last several meetings, I've told you that we would bring forward options for you to consider and associated budgets. And I want to start off with saying we could also just choose to have no fair. I didn't even put that as an option, but that is an option that you can consider. I'm going to call that option 0. If you decide tonight, after hearing all these other options, that it's in the Fair Board's best interest to have no fair, that is certainly your prerogative. But I'm going to run you through 4 options tonight. So for option number 1, that is a 4-H and FFA only fair, which would have livestock and horse dredging. It would be no staying or camping on site, no using of the barns. I would call it a show and go. We're hearing that from other events that are using that term, so I thought that was clever. We would limit it to the participants and to their family. No public would be allowed to attend those events. We would work with the Livestock Association on having their livestock auction. We could do in-person and virtual. We could have some of those buyers in person. We would have to limit them to capacity of the area, but we could work with the Livestock Association if they chose to go that route. Or we could do a combination of in-person and virtual. And then we would also have home arts, judging only, staggered arrival, no displays on site for public viewing. Darcy and Pat and I talked about what that would look like. We could use the event center to have, kids arrive, present their items to a judge for consideration. They would be awarded with a blue, red, or white ribbon, and then the child would leave with their project, but they would still get to do that. Pros and cons with this. Pros, it provides the ability for the 4-H kids to have some sort of fair experience and to qualify for state fair. I also want to just remind that state fair is under these exact same restrictions that we are in. So again, I serve on the state fair board. We are having conversations about what limited or modified fairs could possibly happen at the state fair, depending on what those risk sector numbers look like in late August, early September. And the pro for this one is we have minimal staff support that would be necessary for this, which fits with our current minimal staff. There's not a lot of us, which would be helpful in this scenario. The cons, there's still potential health risks, obviously. There would be no fair experience for the community. I know that the community would really probably like to have some sort of fair experience. There's no revenue generation, and so we would rely on some extra TLT subsidy that would be over our 25% that we normally allocate into this budget. And there's also public perception issues. You're going to hear me talk about this with every single option. And it's actually two-sided. We've got the public who thinks we should do nothing and we need to wait till the pandemic is over and any get-togethers should not be done. And then there's the other side of the coin of people who believe that the pandemic is of no consequence and we should be able to run like normal. So I get emails from people with both of those opinions every week. I got emails on it yesterday. So that's just something that either direction we will have to deal with. Any questions on option number 1, pros or cons? All right, so here's option number 1, budget. So no revenue generation. That means we would rely 100% on TLT and state and a little bit of state funding to cover the costs for running option number 1. TLT is just estimated. That is 25% of the TLT allocation that comes into the fairgrounds. We always get that. That's what we've been doing is 25% that comes into the fair. And then the state funding, again, you've heard me talk about this. The state took it away from us, but then they reallocated it to us last year in the pandemic, and we believe that it is going to stay in place. From an expenditure standpoint, there is staff that is the limited amount. The Fair Board pays 20% of the staff charges for the staff of West Side Commons of the fairgrounds. So of those 5 employees that are back, that's the 20% that the fair pays for. County indirect charges, those don't go away, those stay in place. So there would be other expenditures that would go with option number 1, and that's utilities, janitorial, COVID enforcement monitors, hand washing, you know, all those things that would still have to occur in even just having a 4-H and FFA event only. So we would have to dip into the Fairgrounds TLT by about $30,000. I do want to point out that that's not uncommon. There have been many years over the last 5 to 7 years that the fair has exceeded the 25% TLT allocation, and we've had to dip into the other side of the program and get subsidy from the fairgrounds. And there's a lot of reasons for that. In the last 5 to 7 years, a lot of buildings have been removed and replaced by rental tents that are expensive. And we've had a lot of hot weather where the attendees don't come out, so there's not revenue generation. So so don't get too caught up on, you know, having $30,000 that may need to be subsidized from the other program, because that is typical. Any questions on this before? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to just say one, that one basically, after you and I talked yesterday, that one has no set days on it. It goes however long we need to fulfill all 4-H and all FFA kids to be able to get them through their livestock and judging criteria, correct?
That is absolutely correct. Thank you for bringing that back up, Gary. Pat and Darcy and I have talked about this, and I believe Pat and Darcy have talked about it with their superintendents and their volunteers. This option gives us no time restriction other than it would need to be done in order for them to qualify for state fair. But we could do it the whole month of July. We could do it evenings. We could do it weekends. There's no restriction to a time frame on this option.
Okay.
Which actually is probably the most flexible option. I mean, it would be very easy for the staff to accommodate that within our existing staff schedules with our limited staff.
Why is this one, why is that expensive when you're not utilizing the barns, you have no public coming in? Essentially, it's the show and go. So you just have parents and their kids coming in, showing the animals, and then leaving.
So we don't have outdoor restrooms. Remember, we had to tear the livestock restrooms down. So we've got to rent hand washing. We've got to have restrooms. We still have to pay for COVID enforcement. The state requires to have COVID enforcement on site. We have to pay for we might be able to get volunteers. So there could be some budget savings there if we can find enough volunteers to help us with COVID enforcement, but there are still minimal utilities. This was just a worst case scenario. It could be less than that, but at the most it would be about $25,000. Yeah, we'd have to have signage and other things that would go along with that.
Okay, I'm just curious because I'm envisioning that you don't have very many people on the grounds at any one time. And so your facilities are extremely minimal because you've spread out how many people are on the grounds at one time.
Right, it would depend on how we structure the schedule. If we do it all month long, we might be able to just utilize staff for those COVID enforcement and some volunteers. So this was just worst case scenario. We're trying to, get everything done, and we have to have a bunch of monitors on site, and we might have to have extra janitorial. This is worst case, in any budget, it's the revenue is we hope that we get that much, and the expenditures, this is the worst case. Any questions before we move on to option number 2? Okay, moving right along. So option number 2, this is what I am calling the mini fair or the modified fair or the baby fair or the small fair, whatever we want to call it. I will rely on, if you choose this option, I will rely on Lisa and her creativity to come up with a better name for it than I can. But I'm calling it the mini fair right now. So the thing that you'll probably notice very first is that I'm saying 7 to 10 days. When originally I had told you I didn't want to do 10 days, I wanted to back it up to a 4-day fair. In talking with public health and our COVID enforcement team, spreading people out over a longer number of days and having smaller capacities is going to be more cost effective, and it's actually going to be better from a health risk mitigation standpoint. So if we choose to go this rate, we could spread it out instead of having 8 to 16,000 people on the grounds, which I think is a terrible idea. We could have lower capacities between 3,000 and 5,000 people at any one time on the grounds and spread it out over a longer period of time. With that, then we could anticipate a total attendance between 48,000 and 80,000 people. I want to point out that 80,000 people over 11 days is what we normally do in about 4 days. So we might be able to generate that revenue from those 80,000 people over a longer period of time. And on the weekdays, we could be dark or operate limited hours. We would still need to use reserved online time slots to control capacity, but we would have a full carnival. We would have our full concession stands. We would have some vendor booths, probably not too many, because then that starts to fall under retail sector, and there's very different guidance from the Oregon Health Authority on retail. So that could be very minimal. We could have some limited entertainment, roving entertainment. We could have some small stages where people could gather in very physical distance manner to watch some entertainment. We could have livestock auction in person, like I talked about in option number 1. And the 4-H and FFA could have modified livestock shows. And it could be a modified version of the show and goes, or some, showing that is a little bit longer term on site in smaller groups for the public to enjoy. Pat and I would need to work with in their parameters that OSU has as well, to try to see what we could do from a public viewing standpoint for some of those 4-H and FFA shows, but we would try to work so where the public could actually have some livestock viewing as well. Pros and cons. Pros.
So Leah?
Yep, go ahead, Jerry. Do you want me to go back?
Just a question about the 4-H and the livestock and all of that. So are you saying that they could, in that scenario, they could stay overnight? The animals could stay overnight?
No, definitely not. No staying overnight. We would try to have the show and goes be a little bit more structured, to where we would have livestock on site temporarily for just those shows so the public could watch them. And then those shows would end and the kids would take their animals home. I have some ideas on that. I haven't run them by Pat, so this is the first he's hearing of it.
Okay.
Sorry, Pat.
Hey, Lee, another question on carnival and concessions. Do they come in with their own COVID enforcement? Because I guarantee anytime a kid touches one of the rides, that's got to be sanitized before somebody else can go on.
So we will always be in charge of COVID enforcement. I am already working with the carnival that in the event that you choose to have a carnival on site, if that's the model that you choose, that they have a very clear sanitization plan. So I don't know if any of you have seen those foggers lately. Jerry and I were just talking about it recently. Just those foggers, they can fog things really quickly in between. We would expect that the carnival have a sanitization team and a sanitization plan in place before we would allow them to operate. And our COVID enforcement team, which is part of our risk and public health departments at the county, they're fantastic. They're assisting us with getting the event center open as well. They would review that before we were allowed to open the carnival, but they do have plans in place for sanitization teams, but we would still be the enforcement. Same thing for the food booths, and public health would be highly involved in those as well, like they are normally from a health perspective for E. coli or salmonella. This would just be an extra layer on top of that. But we would still be enforcing that on them and ensuring that they were compliant.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So pros and cons, again, no surprise, events for the community, allows the activities for the kids, generates some revenue, possibly covers any TLT subsidy that would need to occur with option number 1. And I'm going to talk about economic development a little bit. So in this option, we start generating a little local economic development, because carnival, food vendors, and entertainers stay in hotels. They buy gas, they go to laundromats, they go to restaurants, they go to grocery stores, they go to the pharmacy. So we start generating a little bit of local economic development with this model as well. Cons, again, there's always going to be a potential health risk with whichever model you choose to do, unless you choose to have nothing. We do have a limited staff. So in this model, we would need to use some contractors to assist us with production. Again, the expenditures for COVID ticketing, enforcement, sanitization, those are expensive. And consumer confidence risks. This is what I want to talk about when I talk about possibly generating revenue. I'm a little concerned about consumer confidence. So we could throw the gates open and have 5,000 people at any one time on the fairgrounds for a fair, and we might have 5,000 people show up, but do they have the dollars to spend, or will they spend dollars on carnival or food or with our vendors? And that's something that we need to be cognizant of. So when I put a budget in front of you, those are estimating that the people that come spend money. That's no guarantee. There's still a risk with that. And then again, we have those same public perception issues that I spoke of in the last scenario. So budget, this one, same thing, TLT, estimated TLT, state funding, and the other revenue that we could generate with carnival concessions, commercial vendors, and parking. Again, this is just an estimate that we would bring in about 350,000. That is 50%, actually a little less than 50% of what I was anticipating with a 4-day event, not being staggered and having a little bit lower numbers. Expenditures would obviously come up. We would have to use some temporary and contract staffing. Ticketing software is expensive, COVID monitors, all that stuff. We would spend a little bit of money on entertainment, not a lot, but we would still have to manage parking. There's still advertising and marketing that we would have to do. So just some of those normal expenses that occur when you're having kind of a standard county fair with the entertainment and the shopping and all that good stuff. Any questions before I go on to option number 3?
Yeah, how much liability is tied into the expenditures with option 2?
Do you mean liability insurance?
Liability in terms of getting into contracts with entertainment and advertising, equipment, things like that.
I don't know that I know what you mean by liability. So do you mean that we would need to in the event that we would need to cancel them?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, we now include standard COVID language for canceling in all our contracts. So if we need to at the last minute, so there's some mechanisms. So there would be some drop dead dates. If we can't just cancel entertainment the day before because you choose to cancel the fair. There's some language that we would use. If we got shut down by the state, that would be different. But if all of a sudden we decided the risk was too great and canceled the fair, anything less than 30 days, we would still be obligated for entertainment. But that's really about it. Security can be canceled last minute. Monitors can be for no extra charge. Monitors can be canceled, parking management, all that kind of stuff. So really entertainment and advertising. And actually, Lisa, can you unmute and let us know if we were to buy anything outside of social media? So if we were doing social media, those can be canceled quickly. What about any other, if we were doing any minimal radio or TV, could those be pulled last minute and not have to pay for them?
We could. I mean, when we talked to them all last year, they're very understanding of our scenario. I know a year ago, the one that you could not get out of was any outdoor advertising, billboards, anything like that. Everybody else, it's very easy to cancel. But the billboards, anything you do, electronic, digital billboards, the old glue billboards that we all traditionally know, those, no, you can't get out. Once you sign the contract, you are committed to that.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, number 3. No one's going to like this one, but I'm throwing it out there anyway. And that is that we do just carnival and concession event only, no commercial vendors, no entertainment, no 4-H and FFA activities, and all those COVID requirements stay in place. I almost didn't throw this option in, but I figured I'd throw all options on the table for you to review. There's pros and cons with both. There's probably more cons than anything. It's really missing those important aspects of a normal county fair if we decide to go with that. I think that we would be roundly criticized. And we have all heard for many years that the fair board and the county staff has been trying to kill the fair and get rid of agriculture and get rid of livestock and just turn it into a carnival. And this would pretty much seal that message. So I'm not advocating for it, but I did throw it out there that this is an option available to you. And there is obviously a budget that goes with that as well. It doesn't really change it too much over the last budget that you saw for option number 2. Any questions before I move on to option number 4? I see Andy laughing. Okay, option number 4. This one is option number 1 and option number 3 combined. And this would be 4-H and FFA activities that I described in option number 1, plus carnival and concessions, but no commercial vendors, no entertainment, all COVID requirements in place. So it still gives our 4-H and FFA kids, actually, let me get to pros and cons, gives us that experience, gives us our agricultural ties, minimal staff support, still has the cons of missing entertainment, and shopping. But other than that, it's a pretty good model. It fits with current and limited staffing. It generates some revenue, but it does still have those consumer confidence risks that I talked about earlier, which are probably in option number 2 and option number 3 and option number 4. That's my highest concern is that we have a fair and we don't generate the revenue that we're expecting because the money in our community is just not out there. The people might come, but they just don't have the dollars to spend. People have had a really tough year. People have been unemployed. People have been underemployed. And so that's just a concern. So, and then let's see. And this is the budget that goes with option number 4. Again, it's pretty similar to the other options. It's still revenue generation with slightly lower expenditures. So before we go on to the discussion, I do want to talk about just some where other county fairs are already occurring. So Australia and Canada have been holding fairs, and I am told by our international partners that their fairs are going very well. They are doing similar models to what we're talking about in number 2 with the reserving a slot online, attending the fair. They're telling me that their slots are sold out and consumer confidence is high. Here in the United States, we've only got a couple other states to look at that are running fairs, and that's Texas and Florida. And those are 2 very different states than Oregon, and they don't have mask mandates in place. Their COVID numbers are different than ours. Their requirements are different than ours. So the photos that I've seen out of Florida specifically when they're running their events, nobody's wearing masks, nobody's physical distancing, and their fairs look like normal. And of course they're saying, oh, it's wonderful, our fairs are running like normal in the times of COVID, and people are spending money, but that's because they don't have the same mandates in place that we do. While I would love it if we didn't have all these restrictions, these are the restrictions that we have to live in. And so that's, I don't want us to get caught in being compared to Florida and Texas because they have very different restrictions than we're dealing with. So with that, I'm going to open it up to discussion for you guys, and I am absolutely here to answer questions. And I just want to, the last thing I'm going to say before you guys can start discussing is that I do ask that at the end of your discussion that you all come to a consensus on what model you would like to go with. So the staff and Pat and Darcy and I can get moving on whatever path you want to go to, whether it's option 0 is no fair and virtual like we did last year, or any of the options I've presented here tonight.
And one thing you and I discussed too was option number 1 is unlimited days. It can be 7 to 11, it could be 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
Option 2 is 7 to 11. Option 3 is 7 to 11. And option 4 is 7 to 11, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
David, you have your hand up. Is that an old hand or?
No, I've got my hand up.
Okay.
So I'm looking at this and I'm seeing that these options all have public perception as a con. And, I'm thinking about this year, but I also look into the future and future fairs. And public perception is a really hard one to determine because you can't really put a dollar sign on that. But I think we need to do something. Don't know exactly what that is yet, but what we do, it seems like we're going to go into that risk of public perception. And I'm looking at events around Portland. I think some of them are going forward this summer, other ones are not. But I just don't want whatever we do this year to hurt any fairs that could take place that will take place in the future, is what I'm saying.
Agreed.
Okay,
And I know from my perspective, go ahead, Andy.
Okay, David touched on what I was going to mention, and that is that the public perception is the big issue here in all of the scenarios, and our budgets are based on assumptions about attendance, and it's really hard to judge whether those assumptions are correct or not. We could stand to lose a lot more money than we think on most of those options. So I'm still weighing out, what the risk level is, because I'm not sure your attendance record or attendance numbers are accurate, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's kind of a shot in the dark, and those numbers were based upon a fair, in discussions with others that, what, events that are going on and what they think could happen. And it's all just a shot in the dark at this point, and we hope for the best, which is a terrible position to be in.
And I would say I'm just going to focus on FFA and 4-H. For me, it's about those kids out there, especially those kids that are getting ready to go to college and are depending on some monies to be able to assist them in there too. So for me, it's about, if we do an option out there, make it safe for them and make sure that we give them what they need to give in the support.
I guess
I see a bigger problem with the carnivals as well as the concessions in there. I don't know how you can make it totally safe from those rides, even by fogging and spraying. And again, just with people coming together, I have a bigger problem with those.
Okay, Bill has a comment.
From the animal showing side, you got your confirmation and then you got showmanship. And if we're bringing an animal in, we're going to have pens to house them in long enough to go through different classes and then they go home that night. If we're going to get all this done in a 8-hour period, or are we going to be tripping these animals in every day? And who's going to do the health checks on that? And I have a lot of questions about the livestock side of the thing.
Those are a lot of things that Pat and Darcy and I have been talking about that we will have to figure out. That's why in option number one, we have a long period of time to do it. We wouldn't be stuck with trying to get it all done in one 8-hour period or one 4-hour period or whatever it looks like. Pat, can you unmute and tell us a little bit about what your 4-H registration is at this point?
Oh, good. I was just going to mention that. Good. Usually we have about 1,500 kids involved in 4-H at this time of year. Right now we have 246. And that's common across the state. Some counties have 0, some counties a little bit more than that. But so our numbers are really low. And with our restrictions too, they're tighter than what schools are. And that doesn't look like it's changing quickly by any means. So we can't have kids indoors at all right now. It has to be open area or a barn that has 3/4 of the sides open. Mm-hmm. And it could be like Friendship Square would be an ideal place type thing,
Right.
Or the north and south show rings, the auction ring, but it's still the 6-foot distancing. And then there's some other kind of strange requirements in there that OSU and Oregon Health Authority are always negotiating. There's the kids can only be working in their group of 8 kids or 10 kids for 8 hours a week. And so that's another thing we need to make sure we're kind of following too. Also, we can't have any food or beverages served for the kids either. No overnight stuff for sure. So it gets more complicated as we move into it.
Hey, Pat, did you say 46 or 246?
246.
Okay.
So for like the hearth exhibits, those type of things, we couldn't be in the Cloverleaf building or even in the new building, even if and we're always waiting for things to change, but we always use this phrase, this is what we know now.
Yeah. So Bill, to answer your question is the numbers are way down already. We know that. So we're looking at less kids than normal. And from an animal standpoint, we will have to work with each superintendent and each club leader to get their kids and their club judged over a period of time.
But I mean, could we do it? Well, last year with the auction, we did a virtual show and auction, did a combination thereof, where you just went out and you took a picture of it and you sent it in. Then the judges remotely judged, placed, and then we did our auction. Are we gonna have tents out here that are only gonna be, well, they'll be up there for 11 days, but are we only gonna use them for 1 day for these animals? When if we brought them into the fair?
So I don't want you to get focused on operational details. That is something that our staff and Pat and Darcy and the livestock people will figure out. We have to figure out what we're doing first before we can really start getting into the weeds on how the mechanisms of how we actually run it.
Okay. All right.
Jerry, you're raising your hand?
Yeah, I actually officially raised my hand, which is, a technology
that.
thing that, yeah.
I like it that I can see it on my screen.
It's cool up there that, I do that. Usually I just wave my hands and all that. So from my standpoint, I'm trying to work through this in pieces. My number one priority is that we have the livestock availability. So in other words, that's probably not going to draw a lot of people, but it would facilitate the 4-H. And Pat, I guess my question to you is, your numbers are significantly down. If we would announce that we are going to have this and prioritize some of the 4-H activities, would that increase your numbers and get some attention back to that? So maybe that would enhance our ability to put on some livestock activities.
Right now across the state too, April 1st is the deadline for kids to be involved in 4-H to participate in fair. And that's a liability component with insurance to make sure they have enough experience and time to be safe with their animals in a public venue like that. So what we have now is what is available for fair. About, I think 46 of those are horse kids that are in there, somewhere in there. So, and the other 200 are other combination of small animals, livestock, hearth exhibits.
Okay. So if we would, then the other aspect of this is, as Leah and I have talked about, is kind of the income generation side of things with the carnival and things like that. Gary, I certainly agree with your concerns about putting on a carnival. My sense is that provided we don't go backwards in our rating as a county, that this summer, people are going to be really hungry for activities. And I'd like to think that if we would put in a combination of 4-H activities and livestock, kind of going back to the old style fair. I mean, that's what I always get when I go out in my rural areas of my district, the yearning for an old style fair. And then we incorporate that with, some carnival activity and things like that. It would kind of be, to me, the best of both worlds, but it has to be a safe environment no matter what we do. remembering that a few years back, we had, with the livestock things, we had Ebola that was also a concern. I'd kind of forgotten about that. But
E. coli.
E. coli, yeah.
Cool.
And
Ebola
so,
would have been bad.
Yeah. But we dealt with that and managed that, and that turned out okay. In my conversation with Leah and talking about the carnival, those businesses also have been significantly impacted over the last year or so. And so they're probably willing to go above and beyond to make sure that every time there's a ride and a person gets off of that ride, they're going to have somebody to wipe it down and bring the next person on. I don't know, whatever it is that we need. And I guess that's kind of the direction I'm going. It's not so much from a revenue standpoint, because quite frankly, I think we are in the black with some TLT projections and things like that. So it's not like we're hungry for revenues, but I'm looking for more of an opportunity that we can really kind of step up our fair attention and say we're going to put on a really, really safe venue and provide you with some a place that you can go and get out of the house and enjoy the evenings and those kinds of things. And I think, again, what Leah and I had talked about was over 2 weekends. And so the 7 to 11 day thing is not a continuous 7 to 11 days. This would be over 2 weekends. And so anyway, I guess that's just my thoughts right now, and I could be talked into this or talked out of this. So I'd like to hear your comments.
I think my hand's up anyhow.
It is.
I agree with Jerry on almost every point. Specifically, the people are hungry for something. I'm getting so much activity on the 4th of July parade. It's unbelievable. And I think if we frame this, that we're going to go above and beyond to try to do something for the community, that we're not going to get I don't feel we'd be getting a backlash on it. And I think it's a thing that would get us a lot of great goodwill, if you will, for our fair. And I'm not. I feel they're just hungry for having something offered out to them because they're getting nothing right now. And that's it.
All the board has spoken.
Andy's got his hand up.
So
I just wanted
okay.
to add on to that. I'm also in agreement, but to add or to mention to Jerry, I don't think that this is going to enhance the Old County Fair type of venue, because without animals in the barn, you lose a lot of the socialization and the experience the kids have, and the teaching moments where they're teaching the public about raising livestock, that sort of thing.
Rather have them stay home.
What?
Yeah, I would agree with that, Andy. And I'm just thinking, I really want to help the 4-H kids and the FFA kids, and again, continue to provide opportunity for people to come and see and look and participate in the judging and whatever the else. I want to help these kids as much as we possibly can during this venue, but at the same time, then provide an activity for our community to get out of the house and enjoy a nice summer evening and get on some stupid carnival ride that makes you sick and throw up. But anyway. Just personally speaking here, you know.
Bill's got something.
What do you have any vibes from the governor, what her perception is for this for the fair for this year, not only for our fair, but what could be happening to other fairs? You think it's gonna be an okay to go, or we wait till the last minute and we get shut down?
No, we fall within the indoor and outdoor entertainment sector, and I actually just got communication from OHA and the governor's office today, because there are a lot of different events that, are right there with us as well. They're like fairs, but street fairs and markets and fireworks displays and different things. And of course, the event industry in Oregon is lobbying the governor very, very hard. And the response that we got back from her person, Leah Horner, today was, we've provided the guidance. It's the guidance you get. Stick with the guidance and you're going to be fine. So as long as we follow all of the guidance, we can do the things that I've proposed.
Okay,
But we have to follow the guidance entirely.
sure.
Did you say that state fair is going forward as planned?
No. The state fair is planning on trying to do something. They're just in the same situation that we are. We're trying to figure out, what they can do without a, big financial risk. The state fair doesn't even get TLT. They don't get any dollars. So every penny they earn is what they get to spend. So they're in the same situation, and they're publicly, keeping a very brave face about the events, but behind closed doors, those concerts are probably going to get canceled. They've got until 60 days out to cancel those or reschedule them for another year. So, but we're all just waiting to see what's, if any sector guidance gets changed, but we found out today the sector guidance is likely not to get changed before the summer. And then just what risk sectors we're in. We've got 2 counties going backwards and we're still in moderate, but we might not be. We might go up, we might go down. So they're just, every fair in the state and every event in the state is in the same situation right now. We just saw the Blues Festival is going forward. They are renting a piece of property along the waterfront that is not publicly owned. They are putting everybody in little pods that are fenced and charging a bunch of money for each one of those pods for people to sit outside and watch some concerts. And they're significantly reducing the number of bands that they have playing as well. So, but they're following the guidance, and I read their safety plan today. And so there's events that are going forward, but there are financial risks, there are health risks, but on the flip side, you're absolutely right. The community is dying for things to do. So we're just stuck in this where you guys have to make a decision.
Okay, Mr. President, we can discuss further, but I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to adopt number 4.
Second.
Before we do that, let's go through the options. I'd like to go through all 4 options, and I know there's probably at least 2 we're going to be able to drop out in there. Do we have any support for option 1?
That would be my backup if we don't go with option 4.
Yeah. Okay. I would take it based on what Leah said. Option 2 is a no.
No,
Any support for option 2?
not here.
Okay, not seeing that. Okay. Option 3, I guarantee is a no. Okay, so it would be between 1 and 4. So based on the board, Andy, you go ahead and do what you were doing with your motion.
Okay, I think I made the motion and Dave seconded it, so it's on the table. It's a gamble, and I guess I'm convinced to take that gamble because I believe the comments that several of you have iterated that about the public really wanting to have some sort of release, some sort of entertainment venue this summer. And I'm willing to take the gamble because it's in the summer, and I think things are, well, let's just say I'm optimistic that things are going to get better, at least over the summer.
Bill and I are good with 4.
Okay. Jerry, you okay with 4?
Yeah,
David?
4 would have been my option, my preference as well, Gary. So absolutely. Again, we don't need to add on to this, but I really believe that we can enhance not only ticket sales on the carnival thing, but we can enhance safety on the carnival thing just by limiting number of tickets. People are going to have to reserve to get in. There's a whole bunch of things we can do really to enhance those things. And I know that Leah is all over this. And so that's why I would support number 4.
Okay, David?
I'm on board with 4.
Okay, then all in favor of option number 4 being the choice?
Bill and
Okay,
Bob,
Andy's a yes. I'm a yes. Bill and Bob are a yes. I can't see Jerry and David. Let me go to the next
Yep,
screen.
they've both
All
got
right,
their hands
Jerry
up.
and David are yes. Okay, so it looks like that's unanimous that all of us favor option number 4 with basically the enhanced limitations Jerry was talking about on reserving spaces to be able to come in and ensuring we have enhanced COVID on the carnival and concessions.
Great.
May I ask a quick question about this? Because we have a meeting tonight actually with our volunteers. They'll be happy about this, I think. But would this be over the 4 days of the already traditional fair, or 2 different weekends, or do we know yet?
So Pat, we need to just sit down and talk as well. What I promoted was that we would do it over, it's really kind of what I said in option number 2, 7 to 11 days. So what we're really trying to get for some revenue generation and opportunity for the community to participate is for over 2, plus weekends that they have these opportunities to participate in the fair. So my original thinking was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, take 3 days off and do Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday again. We could also do just Friday, Saturday, Sundays. We could do some, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just evenings only. So we've got some things that we can play with in that time frame, and then also figure out how we can work 4-H activities in that. But I also just want to note that I recognize, and I believe the board recognizes it as well, that we might have to actually start 4-H activities much earlier in the month to get everybody through within the guidelines that the OHA has for 4-H. So while we want to have 4-H and FFA activities during the days of the fair when they're open, if we need to do some earlier as well to make sure everybody gets judged and participates, we can certainly look at that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, then I want to raise the question that the educational committee talked with when we talked to Jan about that too. With option number 4, are we going to be able to cover the cost of judges and everything that they're going forward for 4-H and FFA?
So no. So Pat and I have talked about this. We need to really try to utilize we need to really watch our budget. And we need to be really mindful about the dollars that we have. Anytime that we can use volunteer judges, not being, I think the other thing we need to think about is, bringing people from out of our communities, from areas that maybe have higher COVID rates. There are a lot of areas that maybe we wouldn't want to bring judges in to interact with our kids, or from out of state. So trying to use local from our community judges as much as possible. Where it's not possible, hiring judges, especially for horses. I know horses want to hire judges from out of the area. And that's where I think that some of that education fund dollars, instead of just going to 4-H as a whole, I think 4-H horses actually probably is where it's most appropriate, just because they have such a big program and they do have more judges than the rest of the program. So my recommendation personally would be to utilize those funds for 4-H horse, but that's just my opinion.
So what's the price tag on this?
On which?
On the judging?
That's a great question for Pat. For horse judging, you're on mute, Pat.
Overall our judges. I mean, we're talking about, do we have the money? Where are we going to get the money? I mean, what's the tab?
So we don't know yet. So normally we spend a lot of money bringing judges in. We pay judges well, but this year we're going to try to spend as little as possible. So there's not necessarily we also have less kids. So Pat and I need to get together and figure out what things are going to cost. So this is going to be this was what I was going to finally say. Now that you've picked a path and we have a general budget, we need to, I'm actually going to bring back next month an actual formal budget in the normal format that you see, because I need about a month to figure out, I got to talk to the porta potty company, and we got to talk to Pat and Darcy about what kind of judges we need and what that's going to cost. So we'll have a fairly more accurate budget here in the next 30 days.
Leah, the subject
Yeah,
of,
Jerry, to answer your question, I know the 4-H club was trying to get at least $15,000 to be able to cover that cost.
Is that from prior history, and this year it's going to be significantly reduced because a smaller
Did 4-H horse
participation,
send a request?
What they did is they put out a request to get support for the fair, and they're putting it out to the community. And they also brought it to the education committee to see if we could support it. And those were things in there. So I know they are asking for 15,000.
Okay, so the
And it's for
4-H
all 4-H.
the 4-H horse club is asking for 15,000 in
No,
general.
no, the
it's
entire
all- I mean, the
program.
pictures show all animals.
Yes, the entire program.
Oh, so it's for all
Yeah.
the livestock, including horse?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's correct.
I hadn't seen that letter.
well, I think where I was going there is that you may or may not know that every year each commissioner gets an allocation of discretionary funding, and I still have some of my money left over. It has to be spent by June 30th. I don't have $15,000 in there because they don't give us that much, but and I don't know, a couple of years ago, I tossed some money at our educational fund. I'd be willing to do that again if that would be the venue. I mean, I'm talking maybe $1,000 or $1,500. So it's not a lot of money, but at least it would help. I'd be willing to do that if that would help fund this part of it. So
That'd be great.
That
Is
would
it-
be great. And honestly, Jerry, you can donate that directly to the 4-H 501c3. There's no sense in passing it through our education fund just to pass to the 4-H 501c3. What I'm assuming, and maybe Pat doesn't know, but we can get more information to you, is that 15,000 is probably above and beyond. So we've got some funds in our, in the budget that I've, got here that, I gave you some really round numbers tonight, but in our my more detailed budget, I've got some dollars to put forward for 4-H and FFA activities. But, I think that they know that they're going to want more than what we've got. So I think I'm assuming that that's just above and beyond, the little bit of budget that I will have available.
So if you could get me that information, Pat or Leah, and let me know, and I'll put that into the process, and I'll get that taken care of.
That's great. Thank you. And Andy has his hand up.
yeah, I just want to say that this subject came up at the Washington County Farm Bureau meeting, and they don't give any money out unless there's a specific request. So I was going to ask you, had you made that request? And if not, you might want to do that. In fact, if it were me, I would tie it to Jerry's contribution and talk about it in terms of matching funds. I think you could get a little bit there.
So Pat, who at 4-H has generated that letter? Who is your president of your 501c3?
Oh, Susan Cackler
That was
and Jennifer Richlick is kind of leading the charge on that. So
Okay, great. So maybe we
and
can,
the Farm Bureau was on the list of people to contact. Yeah.
okay. Great. So maybe we can work with them to get something to the Farm Bureau and.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, that's a great idea. Thank you, Andy. Bob's got his hand up.
Okay.
Yeah, in terms of
Well,
the animals, we just want to make sure you call on the expertise of myself and Gary, because I'm not sure if any of you know, we have blue ribbons from showings in the previous fair.
you're grand
Thank you.
champions,
Thank
Bob.
you so much for bringing that up. We'd almost forgotten.
We almost went through a whole meeting without him mentioning that.
I know, we almost made it.
I got a couple baby bulls I can throw.
Hey, I'm proud of, seriously, I'm proud of the group here. I think we're undertaking I know it's a big bite, and I'm willing to be a worker this year, whatever you need us for. I'm going to show up to work, so.
Great. Well, that actually brings up a great thing. You know, as much as you know, normally the staff takes on all of the heavy lifting, we don't have, you know, we are down some staff. So don't be surprised if I don't call on you for a little bit of help, so, because we're going to need it. And then I also, well, I'll talk about that in our next item. Never mind.
Okay, on old business, was there anything else on old business to discuss?
Nothing for me.
Okay, we'll move on to new business. Anything on new business?
Nothing.
All right, let's move to the CAO update.
So I don't think I've got Sia on with us tonight. Let me just look. Nope, we don't have Sia with us. So I don't know that there really is a county administrative update that needs to be given tonight, other than the FAC meeting is in 2 weeks. And we do have 2 people on this board that participate in that committee. So we're looking forward to having a FAC meeting again. And I think that's kind of about all I've got from a county administrative update. Just on a quick update, just about the event center. In 2 weeks, the event center is opening for its very first public event, the Pacific Northwest Reptile Expo and Show, or something along those lines. So we're very excited that we've got our first public event, and this is actually a very big family event that we've had at our facility in the Old Main Exhibit Hall. That event outgrew that building a long time ago, and they are now coming back. They've been waiting for this building for many years. It's a hugely popular event, and the owner of that event is, you know, we're very appreciative that he's the first one to say, yep, he's going to move forward. He wants to do it. He's okay with all the COVID restrictions, and he just wants to get his show out there for the community. So that's exciting. So if any of you are interested in reptiles and all that good stuff, or have kids or grandkids that would like to see it, please look at attending that show. And yeah, and then we've got another, you know, we've got several shows that are just coming up. So the good news is we're getting open. What's that?
When is the reptile?
It is April 20, let me look, 23rd and 24th, I believe. April 23rd and 24th. And all the details are on our webpage. All right, moving right along. Just other, if any, I just have one, sorry, Gary, I'm just jumping the gun here. There is a House bill up right now, and that is, it's for fair funding. So I talked a little bit earlier today about the fair funding that, let me pull it up here. That $53,166 that we always got from the state lottery funds for many years. 2 years ago, the state decided that we didn't need that money, and they took it away, and we got it reauthorized last minute, last August. And now House Bill 3173, it's called the Fair Funding Bill, is getting some major traction in the legislature right now. And it's going to, I believe, the Ways and Means Committee in the next, I'm reading it, sorry, I just got this email. And it's, what it is right now, all the fairs in Oregon get $53,166. It's a complete split of a certain amount of money from the lottery. It's capped. Our funding is capped. And what has been proposed by several of our Senate committee members is to remove the cap from fairs altogether, so we don't get stuck with just that minimal amount. And surprisingly, it's got a ton of support, and it's making its way through the bill process. And there's I believe it's the final hearing, and it's coming up here on April 14th from 5:30 to 7:30. And they are asking that all the fairs participate in these hearings. So if any of you are interested in in requesting that the cap be removed from our fair funding. I can send you that information if anybody is interested in either providing video testimony or written testimony. If we got that cap removed, the fair funding would go from $53,000 to about $200,000, and that would be a huge deal for us. So I will forward that information on. There's a sign up button that you can click to sign up to speak, or and it gives information on where you can submit written testimony. The Oregon Fairs Association lobbyist is preparing speaking points for us that are forthcoming. So as soon as I get those as well, I will send those on to you as well, just so you have those speaking points. But it's very exciting that there's so much support. I think a lot of it is the state legislature really recognizes that fairgrounds have played an integral part to helping the community in the pandemic as well as the wildfires. No year has ever probably been more evident that why communities need a county fairgrounds than 2020, with housing animals and people for wildfires, and participating in, houseless or court, things like we did here for the pandemic, and vaccination clinics and testing. The legislature is really seeing the importance of county fairs and county fairgrounds right now. So that's just a little bit of good news. So I will send that all on to you. Jerry.
So Leah, what committee is that coming through?
I'm looking at that right now. I've gotten several emails on it today, and it says it's in the Ways and Means regional hearings right now is where it's headed. And I'm not sure what committee it's coming through. I watched a hearing. Our government affairs people are on this as well, Jerry. Aaron Doyle and Jajit have been on it, and they have written some testimony on behalf of Washington County as well. So I've been sending all of that to them. So I can follow up with you on that committee information, because I know our government affairs people have that.
Okay, well, I think it would be great if either Gary or Andy would be willing to testify, and remembering it's all video, so it's all Zoom.
Yep.
So you don't have to drive to Salem. That's the good news to the thing.
Yeah.
Or depending on when that would happen, I'd be willing to testify as well. The benefit is, and I'm trying to figure out what legislator we need to lobby, is that as an elected, I get head of the line privileges, so we don't have to wait for the queue, and you might be an hour into this thing just waiting until you get to speak. So figure all of that out, Leah, and see what we could do there. But again, I think either Gary or Andy would be a great advocate, if I can speak for you too, to provide for that. And again, it's pretty doggone easy, just because it's all Zoom. So
yeah, I will send all that information to all of you. And then I will also, I've gotten some other emails from our state lobbyist just about the lobbying efforts and what committees and who they've talked to, who they presented to. I know it's been rolling through lots of different committees over the last few weeks, but now it's at the Ways and Means Regional. So it looks like for our district, it's Bonamici, and that hearing is on April 14th from 5:30 to 7:30. So if you're available, Jerry, that would be great. And Gary and Andy, if you're available. And if not, written testimony is great as well. And then if any other board members want to supply written testimony, I think the more the merrier.
Yeah. So yes, shoot that information out, Leah,
Yep.
if you would, please. And I'll look at calendaring and all that. But again, be great.
Yep. All right. Let's see.
All right. Let's move on to oral communication 2.
Yep.
This is the time where anybody in the audience can address the board. Time limit is 5 minutes per individual, and the maximum time is 30 minutes. And so again, anybody would like to address us, this is your time.
I'm monitoring and I don't see any hands up at this time. We'll just give it maybe a minute more. And David, I did just see your message in chat that you have not been inside the event center yet. And while you could absolutely go to the reptile show, I'm back in the office these days. I walk very, very slowly, and I look at my feet when I walk, but I'm happy to take you on a tour, or Lisa's in the office so we can And I think everybody else has been in the building. Maybe Bill hasn't. Bill, have you been in the building?
I haven't been in.
Okay, so maybe you guys can coordinate on time and we can get you into the office and give you a tour. Let's get that done. Okay, so we don't have any hands up for oral communication, so moving right along. That
The
is
next
the end of,
phase is,
so end
okay,
of
the
my
dates.
end of my presentation, but these are our upcoming meetings. So if you can all please make sure that they are on your schedule. Our next will be May 5th, and that's where I'll be presenting a more detailed modified budget to go along with the option 4 model that you chose tonight.
Beautiful. All right, with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Right on. Looks like we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. You have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Thank you
You
all.
too.
Thank you.
Where?